The morning sun was bright over the small, green house where David lived. It was a simple place, but it was his. His grandfather had built it many years ago. The house was not huge, but it had a big garden. David loved the garden. He spent his weekends fixing the old fence and planting flowers. It was a quiet life. He was a man who liked things to be simple. He worked hard and came home to his peace. But on this Tuesday, everything changed. A loud sound came from the sky. It was not a normal airplane. It was a dark, shiny car that floated without wheels. It landed right in the middle of David's vegetable garden, crushing his tomato plants. David stood on his porch, holding a cup of coffee. He was scared but also amazed. The door of the shiny car opened, and a man stepped out. He looked human, but he was too perfect. His suit was gray and had no wrinkles. His hair was styled perfectly. He smiled, but his eyes did not crinkle like a normal person's. He walked up the path to David. "Good morning," the man said. His voice was smooth, like music. "My name is Mr. Sterling. I represent the Galactic Relocation Agency." David put his coffee down. "Galactic what?" he asked. "You ruined my tomatoes." Mr. Sterling waved his hand. The crushed tomatoes somehow fixed themselves and popped back up. David gasped. "Do not worry about the plants," Sterling said. "We are here for a much bigger purpose. We have selected Earth for a special program. We call it preservation. And unfortunately, your house sits right on top of a very important energy spot. A node." David did not understand. "Energy spot? I have lived here for 30 years. There is no energy spot." Sterling laughed softly. "It is deep underground. You cannot see it. But my people need it. It is very important for the galaxy. If we do not use it, the planet could become unstable." He lied smoothly. "But we are fair. We want to help you. If you let us take this land, we will give you a new life. A better life." David looked at his house. "But I own this place. It is my home." "Exactly," Sterling said. "And we respect that. That is why we have a deal for you. We will move you to Paradise Station. It is a luxury city in space. You will have a robot butler. You will never have to work again. You will have credits to buy whatever you want. You will be a king there." David's head was spinning. A life in space, no more bills, no more fixing the roof. It sounded like a dream. "What do I have to do?" David asked. "Just sign this deed," Sterling said. He pulled a small, silver square from his pocket. He tapped it, and a blue light shot up, forming a screen in the air. "It transfers the ownership of this land to the agency. In exchange, you get a ticket to Paradise Station and enough credits to live like a god." David looked at the screen. There were many words. They were small and moved around. "It is a lot of reading," David said. "It is standard legal text," Sterling said quickly. "Boring stuff, but look here at the bottom. It says luxury apartment and unlimited credits. It is all there. Thousands of people have signed today. You do not want to be the only one left behind, do you?" David felt pressure. He did not want to be left behind. Everyone wanted to go to the stars. "Okay," David said. "But I want something first." "Anything," Sterling smiled. "I want a paper copy," David said. "My grandfather always said, if it isn't on paper, it isn't real." Sterling paused. The smile almost dropped. Paper that is very old-fashioned. We do not use paper. I don't care, David said, crossing his arms. No paper, no signature. Sterling looked at his watch, or whatever was on his wrist. Very well. We can arrange that. He snapped his fingers. The silver square made a noise, and a piece of thick white paper printed out from thin air. Sterling handed it to David. David looked at the paper. It had his name at the top, David. It had a big red stamp at the bottom. It looked important. He folded it and put it in his pocket. Okay, he said. Where do I sign? He pressed his thumb on the blue light screen. It beeped. Done, Sterling said. You are now a citizen of the stars. They got into the shiny floating car. David looked back at his house one last time. He felt a little sad, but he thought about the robot butler. The car flew high into the sky. In minutes, they arrived at the interstellar airport. David had never seen anything like it. It was massive. Ships of all shapes and sizes were landing and taking off. There were aliens with blue skin and aliens with 3 eyes. David felt very small. Mr. Sterling walked fast. David had to run to keep up. We are in a hurry, Sterling said. Your shuttle leaves soon. Go to gate 42. It is down that hall, take a left, go down the stairs, and it is the last door on the right. Gate 42, David repeated. Okay. And my luggage? It is already on the ship, Sterling lied. You must hurry. The pilot does not like to wait. David nodded. He trusted the man in the suit. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Good luck, David, Sterling said. He turned and walked away toward the VIP section. He did not look back. David walked through the busy airport. He looked for gate 41, then gate 42. It was in a dark, quiet corner of the airport. The lights flickered there. The gate door looked old. There was a screen above the door. It said, "Departing to Paradise Station, on time." David sat on a metal bench. He was excited. He took out the paper deed to read it again while he waited. He smiled. He was going to be a king. He sat there for 1 hour. Then 2 hours. Then 3 hours. The screen did not change. The door did not open. David stood up and walked to the window. He could not see the ships from here. He saw a cleaning robot brushing the floor. He walked over to a security guard who was sleeping near a pillar. Excuse me, David said. When is the flight to Paradise Station? The guard yawned. He looked at David with tired eyes. Paradise Station, that flight does not exist. David laughed. Of course it does. Mr. Sterling put me on it. The guard shook his head. Sir, look at the screen. He pointed. David looked. The screen had changed. It now said, Gate 42, maintenance only, no flights. What David said. But it said on time when I got here. That screen is broken, the guard said. It has been broken for 5 years. There is no Paradise Station shuttle. That company went out of business a long time ago. David felt cold. No. Mr. Sterling. He just left me here. Mr. Sterling, the guard laughed. Never heard of him. Look, buddy, you got scammed. It happens. Go to the lost property office, but I doubt they can help you. David stood there, frozen. He reached into his pocket. His house was gone. His clothes were gone. His money was gone. He had nothing but the piece of paper in his hand. He looked at the deed again. It was the only thing he had left. He was stranded in a strange, noisy airport, millions of miles from home, with nothing but a paper that said he gave everything away for a lie. The airport was a giant, noisy place. David walked away from gate 42 with his head down. He felt very small. Thousands of aliens and humans were rushing past him. No one looked at him. To them, he was just another person in a crowd. But David felt different. He felt empty. He had no home. He had no money. He did not even have a phone that worked in this place. He walked for a long time. The floors were shiny and white, and the ceiling was so high he could barely see it. Big screens on the walls showed advertisements for trips to Mars, Jupiter, and places he had never heard of. Come to the Sun Resort. One screen flashed. Buy a robot pet today, said another. David watched the colorful lights. It all looked wonderful, but he had nothing. He touched the pocket of his jeans. The paper deed was still there. It was rough against his fingers. It was the only thing left from his old life. His stomach made a loud noise. He was hungry. He saw a machine that sold drinks and food. He walked up to it and looked at the pictures. There was a blue bottle that looked like water. He pressed the button to get it. A small light flashed red. Please insert credits, a cold voice said. David patted his pockets again. He had no credits. He had no cash. He had nothing to give the machine. He walked away, feeling thirsty and sad. He found a water fountain in a quiet hallway and drank some water. It tasted like metal. He sat down on a cold bench and put his head in his hands. He thought about his small house with the garden. He thought about his kitchen table and his bed. He thought about Mr. Sterling and the nice suit. He felt so stupid. How could he believe a stranger? How could he sign his house away? Hours passed. The sun in the windows went down, and the space outside turned black with millions of stars. The airport did not sleep, the lights stayed bright, and the noise never stopped. David was tired, but he was afraid to close his eyes. He was afraid someone would steal his shoes or the paper in his pocket. He stood up and walked again, looking for a safe place to rest. He turned a corner and found a waiting area near a large window. It was darker there, and not many people were around. In the corner, a woman was sitting on the floor. She was not wearing fancy space clothes. She wore a simple blue jacket and black pants. She had a small bag next to her. She was eating something from a silver package. David stopped. He was too tired to walk more. He sat on the floor a few meters away from her. He pulled his knees up to his chest and watched the people walk by. After a few minutes, the woman looked at him. She had dark hair and sharp eyes that looked like she missed nothing. She saw the sad look on David's face. She reached into her bag and pulled out another silver package. She threw it gently to him. David caught it. It was warm. Eat, she said. Her voice was clear and strong. You look like you haven't eaten in a day. David opened the package. It was a soft, yellow bar. It smelled sweet. Thank you, he said. I don't have any money. It is okay, the woman said. I have enough. My name is Sophie. I am David, he said. He took a bite of the bar. It was soft and tasted like honey and nuts. It was the best thing he had ever tasted. He ate it quickly. Sophie watched him eat. She saw the way he held onto his pocket with one hand while he ate with the other. She pointed at his pocket. "What are you hiding? Is it valuable?" David swallowed the last bite. He felt a little stronger now. "It is not valuable," he said. "It is just a piece of paper. But it is all I have." Sophie moved a little closer. She was interested. In a space station full of high-tech computers and digital money, no one carried paper. "Let me see it," she said. David hesitated. He did not know this woman. But she had given him food. She was the only person who had been nice to him all day. He slowly took the folded paper out of his pocket. He handed it to her. Sophie took it carefully. She opened it and smoothed out the creases. She looked at the big red stamp and the messy digital signature. Her eyes moved quickly across the words. David watched her face. He expected her to laugh at him for being scammed. Suddenly, Sophie stopped reading. She looked up at David. Her eyes were wide. "Where did you get this?" she asked. Her voice was serious now. "I signed it this morning," David said. "A man named Mr. Sterling took my house. He gave me this and brought me here. But he left me at the gate. There was no flight." Sophie looked back at the paper. She pulled a small device from her wrist. It looked like a watch but had a screen that glowed blue. She held the watch over the paper. A light scanned the document. Beep. 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 The screen on her watch turned red, then gold. "Oh my," Sophie whispered. She looked at David with new respect. "You are not just a homeless man, David. You are in big trouble. Or maybe, you are very lucky." "What do you mean?" David asked. He was confused. "It is just a deed for my land. I sold it." Sophie shook her head. "No, you did not just sell land. Look at the top of the paper. Do you see those small words?" David looked. It said Galactic Heritage Claim, Sector 7. "I don't know what that means," David said. "It means the land your house was on is special," Sophie explained. "I work in data analysis for the Transit Authority. I see these codes sometimes. Your land sits on a planetary ley line." "A ley line," David repeated. "Is that a type of line for electricity?" "It is much more than electricity," Sophie said. "It is a river of infinite energy. It is power that can run spaceships, cities, even weapons. The Galactic Consortium wants that power badly. They need it for their fleets." David felt his heart beat faster. "My garden has infinite energy." "Yes," Sophie said. "But there is a problem. The galactic laws are very old and very strict. They are cold and logical. The law says that ley lines cannot be stolen. They can only be inherited or gifted by the rightful owner. That is you." "But I signed it," David said. "I gave it to Sterling." "You signed the paper, yes. But look at the bottom of the page," Sophie pointed. "There is a clause here. Standard Earth legalese. It says, ownership is retained until possessory transfer is fully complete." David stared at the words. "I don't understand." Sophie sighed and smiled. "It means the deal is not done until you are safe in your new home. You are not in your new home. You are stranded here. Mr. Sterling broke the contract. He tried to cheat you." She tapped the paper with her finger. "Because he left you behind, the transfer never finished. But the system recognized your signature. The computer system thinks you are still the administrator of that energy node." David looked at his hands. So, the house is still mine. In the eyes of the galaxy, yes, Sophie said. And here is the best part. Because Sterling tried to cheat the system, the ley line has gone into lockdown mode. It will not work for the aliens. They cannot turn it on. They have parked their big machines over your old neighborhood, but they have no power. They are stuck. David stood up. He looked out the big window. He could not see his house from here, but he knew it was there. They can't use it. No, Sophie said. They need the administrator to unlock it. That is you. David looked at the paper in Sophie's hand. He felt a spark inside him. He had felt helpless all day. He thought he had lost everything. But now, this woman was telling him he held the key. He wasn't just a victim. He was the boss. So, what do I do? David asked. His voice did not shake anymore. Sophie stood up and handed the paper back to him. She smiled a dangerous smile. We go to a communication port. We connect to the node. And you tell the aliens to get off your lawn. David followed Sophie through the crowded hallways of the airport. He walked faster now. He did not feel tired anymore. He felt a fire in his chest. The paper deed was safe in his pocket. He held it tight as he walked. Sophie walked in front of him. She looked confident. She knew where she was going. She dodged a group of tall aliens with green skin and pulled David behind a pillar just in time to avoid a cleaning robot that was spraying water on the floor. Where are we going? David asked. He was out of breath. To the main observation deck, Sophie said. There are big screens there. We need to see what is happening at your house. We need to see if the story on the news is true. They walked for another 10 minutes. The airport was like a maze. There were shops selling strange fruits, robots carrying luggage, and travelers speaking languages David had never heard. Finally, they reached a large glass wall. Beyond the glass, David could see the curve of the earth. It was beautiful and blue. But in front of the window, there was a row of huge screens. One screen was showing the local news. Sophie pointed at the screen. Look, she said. David looked. The camera showed a view of his old neighborhood. He recognized the street sign. It was Maple Avenue. But it looked different now. There were huge, black metal machines parked on the street. They were as big as houses. They sat on top of the gardens and the roads. They looked like giant metal spiders. They were silent and dark. On the corner of the screen, a small picture of Mr. Sterling appeared. He was talking to a reporter. The reporter had 4 eyes and blue skin. David turned up the volume by waving his hand near the speaker. We are experiencing minor technical delays, Mr. Sterling said on the screen. He smiled, but he looked nervous. His forehead was wet with sweat. The energy node is very sensitive. We need to calibrate our equipment. Please, remain calm. The power will be restored to the city soon. Liar, Sophie said. She crossed her arms. They are not calibrating anything. They are stuck. Why are they stuck? David asked. If they have the machines, why don't they just take the energy? Because of the lockdown mode, Sophie explained. The ley line is smart. It is alive in a way. It knows you are the administrator. It is waiting for you. Until you say it is okay, or until you are dead, the energy will not flow for them. Sterling is trying to hack the system, but he cannot break the lock. David looked at the black machines on the screen. He thought about his tomato plants under those heavy metal legs. He felt angry. So, they are just sitting there. Yes, Sophie said. And they are getting desperate. The consortium hates to wait. They are used to taking what they want instantly. Suddenly, the screen flickered. The news report cut out for a second, then, a message appeared: unauthorized access attempt, Sector 7. Sophie grabbed David's arm. They are trying to break the lock right now. We have to hurry. We need to get you to a communication port. You need to connect to the node before they break it. She led him away from the window and toward a row of quiet booths. These were for pilots and ship captains to make private calls. This one, Sophie said. She opened the door to a booth and pushed David inside. It was small and dark. There was a screen and a keyboard. David sat in the chair. He felt overwhelmed. I don't know how to use this, he said. I am just a normal guy. I don't know how to control a planet. You don't need to be a scientist, Sophie said. She leaned over him and typed a code into the machine. The system works on intent. It works on connection. This is the human factor. What does that mean? Aliens think with logic, Sophie explained. They see the ley line as a battery. They use math to turn it on. But you are human. You lived on that land. You slept there. You ate there. You have a connection to the land that they cannot copy. The deed is just paper, but your signature is a promise. The system reads your biometric signature, but it also reads your emotion. David looked at the screen. It asked for a verification ID. Take out the deed, Sophie commanded. David took the crumpled paper from his pocket. He placed it on the scanner pad next to the screen. A red light swept over the paper. Verify administrator, the computer said. Put your hand on the screen, Sophie said. David placed his hand on the cold glass. The screen glowed bright blue. Suddenly, his mind felt funny. It was like a buzz in his head. He saw images. He saw his house. He saw the roots of the trees in his garden. He saw the deep underground river of energy. It looked like gold light flowing in the dark. Whoa, David whispered. He could feel the power. It was huge. It was warm and strong. It felt like the heartbeat of the earth. David, concentrate. Sophie's voice sounded far away. The system is asking you for a command. Sterling is trying to hack you. You have to push him out. David felt a cold presence trying to enter his mind. It felt like ice. It was the alien logic. It was trying to tell him that he was small. It was trying to tell him to give up. It was 1,000 math problems trying to confuse him. You are nothing. You are homeless. Submit, the cold voice said in his head. David squeezed his eyes shut. He remembered his grandfather. He remembered the day he got the keys to the house. He remembered the smell of rain on the roof. He remembered the feeling of being safe. I am not nothing, David said out loud. He spoke to the machine. I live there. That is my home. The screen flashed red. The alien presence pushed harder. It felt like a headache. David wanted to let go. He wanted to sleep. Use your stubbornness. Sophie shouted. Humans are stubborn, you never give up on your home. Fight back. David gritted his teeth. He thought about Mr. Sterling's perfect suit. He thought about being left at the gate. He thought about the lie. A wave of anger washed over him. It was not a quiet anger. It was a loud, hot anger. It was the feeling of a human protecting what is theirs. "Get out of my head!" David yelled. He slammed his other hand on the desk. The anger acted like a shield. The cold alien logic shattered. The blue light on the screen turned a fierce gold. The headache vanished. David felt powerful. He felt connected to every piece of rock and soil in his neighborhood. "Administrator confirmed," the computer said. The voice was no longer cold. It sounded like a hum, like the earth itself was speaking. "Identity verified, David. Status, planetary governor." David opened his eyes. The screen was showing a map of the city. Little dots representing the consortium machines were blinking red. They were trapped. Sophie let out a breath. "You did it. The lockdown is secure. They cannot break in now. You are in control." David looked at the map. He saw his street. He saw the red dots of the alien machines. He looked at the keyboard. He knew what he had to next. He was not just a victim anymore. He was the governor. And he had had enough of these trespassers. "Sterling thought he could cheat me," David said. His voice was deep and steady. "He thought he could take my house and leave me with nothing. He was wrong." He looked at Sophie. She was smiling. "They are listening to you now, David. The whole fleet is listening. What do you want to do?" David looked at the blinking red lights. He remembered the crushed tomatoes. He remembered the empty feeling in the airport. He stood up straight. "I want them to leave," David said. "I want them to leave my planet." David stared at the screen in the small booth. The cursor blinked, waiting for a command. His hand hovered over the keyboard. He thought about his old house. He thought about the crushed tomato plants. He thought about the fear he felt when he realized he had been scammed. That fear was gone now. In its place was a strong, hot feeling. He was the owner. He was the boss. "I am done with them," David said. His voice was not loud, but it was hard as rock. He typed a single word into the command line, "Eject." Then he pressed the enter key with force. Outside the booth, the ground of the entire airport shook. It was not a small vibration. It was like an earthquake. People screamed and dropped their bags. Sophie grabbed the edge of the desk to stay standing. The blue light from the screen grew so bright that it filled the small booth. It felt like the sun had come inside. "Look at the news feed." Sophie yelled over the loud humming noise. On the screen, the view from the news helicopter was shaking. In the neighborhood where David used to live, the earth was moving. The black metal spider machines stood on legs of steel. Suddenly, cracks appeared in the concrete streets. A brilliant blue light shot up from the ground. It did not come from the machines. It came from the earth itself. It was the ley line. The energy node was waking up. But it was not just energy. It was David's will. The blue light wrapped around the alien machines like giant hands. The machines tried to fly away. Their engines roared and fired fire, but the blue light was stronger. The alien technology was built on logic. It was built to harvest energy. But this energy was wild. It had a human heartbeat. The machines could not understand it. One by one, the giant black ships were pulled up into the sky. They did not explode. They were simply thrown away, like toys thrown by an angry child. The blue light pushed them higher and higher, past the clouds, past the sky, and into the deep darkness of space. Inside the airport, the lights flickered and died. For a second, it was dark. Then, the emergency lights turned on. But they were not red. They were blue. The same blue that came from the ley line. David walked out of the booth. He felt different. He could feel a hum in his pocket where the deed was. He could feel a connection to the airport itself. The air smelled like ozone and rain. He stood up straight and looked around the terminal. The aliens in the airport looked confused. The galactic security droids, which usually ignored everyone, stopped moving. Their red electronic eyes turned to look at David. They did not attack him. They waited. "Identify," the lead droid said. Its voice was metallic. David spoke clearly. "I am the administrator of Sector 7. The droid bowed its head slightly. "Acknowledged. Awaiting orders, Governor." Sophie stepped out of the booth behind him. Her mouth was open in shock. She looked at the droids, then at David. "It worked," she whispered. "The whole security system just switched to your command. The airport is yours." Suddenly, a shout came from across the hall. "No. This is impossible." David turned his head. It was Mr. Sterling. He was running toward the exit doors. He looked messy now. His perfect gray suit was wrinkled. His hair was out of place. He looked terrified. He was carrying a small silver bag, trying to escape. David looked at the security droids. "Stop him," David said. The droids moved fast. They rolled on their wheels across the polished floor. They blocked Sterling's path. Sterling tried to push past them, but the droids were made of strong metal. They grabbed his arms. "Let me go!" Sterling screamed. He looked at David. "You don't understand. You cannot control the ley line. It will destroy you. It is too much power for a human." David walked over to him. The crowd of travelers made a circle around them. Everyone was watching. David felt calm. The energy he felt from the earth was not destroying him. It felt warm. It felt like a hug. It felt like home. "It is not too much for me," David said. "It is my land. You tried to steal it, you tried to cheat me. I just wanted the energy." Sterling cried. "The consortium needs it. You are just a human. You are small. You should be honored to serve us." David shook his head. "That is your problem. You think we are small. You think you can just push us around. But we are not small. We take care of what is ours." He looked at the droids. "Take him to the holding cell. And contact the Galactic Federation. Tell them the administrator of Earth wants to speak to the boss." The droids dragged Sterling away. He kicked and yelled, but no one helped him. The other aliens in the terminal stepped back. They looked at David with new eyes. They did not see a poor, stranded traveler anymore. They saw a leader. Sophie touched David's arm. "The news is showing the rest of the world," she said. She pointed to a big screen on the wall. The screen showed the Earth from space. Where the city was, there was a soft blue glow. It was a shield. The energy from the ley line had not just thrown the ships away, it had wrapped a protective bubble around the entire sector. "You saved the city," Sophie said. "Actually, you saved the planet." David looked at the screen. He saw the blue glow. It was beautiful. He thought about his grandfather. He thought about the old days. He felt a tear in his eye, but he wiped it away. He wasn't the sad man from Gate 42 anymore. I didn't save the planet, David said. I just protected my property. He walked toward the large windows at the end of the terminal. He could see the sky turning blue as the sun began to rise. He knew the Galactic Federation would send more ships. They would try to talk, or maybe they would try to fight. But David was not afraid. He had the deed. He had the power. What do we do now? Governor Sophie asked. She was smiling. David smiled back. It was a real smile. First, he said, I am going to get a real coffee. Not the cheap stuff from the machine. Then, we are going to go back to my house. I think I have some redecorating to do. The airport robots beeped and followed him as he walked. For the first time in his life, David was not walking behind someone. He was walking in front, and the world was walking with him. The big screens in the airport changed again. The news about the ships being thrown into space stopped. A serious face appeared on every screen in the terminal. It was not Mr. Sterling. It was an alien with a very high forehead and purple skin. He wore a robe made of gold fabric. The text under his face said, High Ambassador Zor of the Galactic Federation. The noise in the airport stopped. Everyone looked at the screens. David stood near the big window, watching. Sophie stood next to him. The security droids were still around them, protecting their new leader. Citizens of Earth, the alien said. His voice was deep and echoed in the big hall. We have witnessed a great event today. The energy node in Sector 7 has activated. We have confirmed the signature of the administrator. The camera zoomed in on David in the airport. The High Ambassador looked directly at David through the screen. Administrator David. We apologize for the actions of Mr. Sterling. He was a rogue agent. He did not follow the correct protocols. We wish to offer you a settlement. We will pay you 5 trillion credits for the deed. Please, sign the transfer again, and we will forget this mistake. The crowd in the airport gasped. 5 trillion credits was more money than a human could spend in a lifetime. A man next to David whispered, Take it. Take the money. David looked at the screen. He remembered the feeling of the cold logic trying to enter his mind. He remembered being left at the gate like a piece of trash. He looked at Sophie. She shook her head. She knew what he was thinking. David walked up to a communication panel that connected to the screen. He pressed a button to speak. The High Ambassador waited. I do not want your credits, David said. His voice was calm. The High Ambassador looked confused. You do not want the credits, that is illogical. With that much money, you can buy a new house. You can buy a planet. Why would you refuse? Because credits are just numbers, David said. You tried to take my home. You tried to cheat me because you thought I was small. You thought you could push a human around. But you were wrong. This land is my heritage. It is my family's legacy. It is not for sale. The High Ambassador's face twitched. He was not used to hearing no. But Administrator, our fleets need this energy. Our planets are dying. We need the ley line. David looked at Sophie. She nodded. David had an idea. I am not a monster, David said to the alien. I will not let your planets die. But I will not give you the land. I will rent it to you. Rent? The High Ambassador asked. He had never heard of such a thing from a primitive species. Yes, David said. You need the energy. I have the switch. You will pay me a fee every month to use the energy. but you will not pay me in credits. I do not trust your money. Then what do you want? The alien asked. I want technology, David said. I want medicine for every hospital on Earth. I want engines that do not pollute our air. I want machines that clean the ocean. You will give Earth your best technology. That is the rent. If you stop paying, I turn off the power. The airport was silent. Then, slowly, people started to cheer. The humans in the terminal clapped their hands. The aliens looked nervous. The High Ambassador thought for a long minute. He calculated the math. The cost of technology was low compared to the value of the ley line energy. This is an unusual arrangement, the High Ambassador said. But it follows the galactic trade laws. We agree to your terms, Administrator David. We will send the technology today. The contract is valid. The screen went black. The deal was done. David let out a long breath. His hands were shaking, but he felt good. He felt powerful. He had just negotiated with the most powerful government in the galaxy, and he had won. Sophie patted him on the back. You did it, David. You just saved the world and got rich at the same time. That is pretty good for a guy who was sleeping on a bench yesterday. David smiled. I had a good teacher, he said. Now, let's go home. I am tired of this airport. They walked out of the terminal. The security droids followed them, but David told them to stay. He did not need guards anymore. A sleek, silver car was waiting for them outside. It was a gift from the Galactic Federation to say sorry. David drove the car out of the airport and onto the highway. The city looked different. The sky was clearer. He could see the blue shield shimmering high above in the atmosphere. It was faint, like a soap bubble, but it was there. It was protecting everyone. When they reached David's old street, the sun was setting. It painted the sky in orange and pink colors. The street was quiet. The giant black spider machines were gone. There were a few holes in the road where the legs had been, and the grass was a bit flattened. But David's house was still standing. It looked small and simple against the empty sky. The paint was peeling a little on the porch. The fence was old. David stopped the car and got out. He walked up the path to his front door. His feet felt heavy on the concrete. He reached into his pocket and took out the keys. He had been so scared that he would never use these keys again. He put the key in the lock. It turned with a familiar click. He opened the door. The air inside smelled dusty and stale, but it was his air. He walked into the living room. The chair where he used to sit and drink coffee was still there. The clock on the wall was ticking. It looks the same, Sophie said, standing in the doorway. It is better, David said. It is safe. He walked into the kitchen and looked out the window at the garden. His tomato plants were crushed flat. But the soil was glowing faintly with a soft blue light under the dirt. The ley line was there, humming quietly. It was giving life to the earth. David realized that he wasn't just a homeowner anymore. He was the landlord of the sector. He was the guy who controlled the power for the aliens. He was the reason Earth would get better hospitals and cleaner air. But right now, he just wanted to be a man in his house. He turned to Sophie. Can you stay for dinner? He asked. I don't have any robot food, but I think I have some cans of soup. Sophie laughed. Soup sounds perfect, Governor. David put the paper deed on the kitchen table. He smoothed it out. He looked at the red stamp. It was just a piece of paper, but it had changed everything. He looked out the window at the stars coming out in the dark sky. They left him at the airport. They took his house. They thought he was nothing. But they were wrong. Humans were stubborn, humans cared about their homes. And sometimes, that simple human feeling was stronger than any alien technology. David smiled and opened a can of soup. He was home. And he was never leaving again.